Concorde, able to fly at twice the speed of sound, the fastest way to travel in the world. It's hard to believe that the technology needed to power this amazing plane all began with the steam era, a mode of transportation that ruled the country and ruled Pennsylvania industry from the mid-19th century to the mid-20th century. This is the K4, the most famous of steam locomotives on the Pennsylvania Railroad. And today it rests in all its glory here at the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania in Strasburg, along with 65 other locomotives and rolling stock. Hello, I'm Chris Doran. I've been a rail fan since I was in college, and the lore of steam locomotives gave me the urge to learn more about them and how they have and still are shaping our American history and culture. Few states offer more ways for rail fans to enjoy their hobby than Pennsylvania. Today, we'll be visiting 8 short lines that are representative of Pennsylvania's rich railroad heritage. A short line railroad was built to service communities which were too small to be handled by the larger Class 1 railroads, but too large to do without one. They carried passengers and hauled freight for the local industries. Today, many exist as tourist attractions that give people the chance to experience the sights and sounds of a real train ride. We'll also take a look at a rail fan weekend at the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad that shows how many rail fans there really are. So all aboard and join me on Pennsylvania Short Lines. Our first journey is aboard the Wanamaker, Kempton, and Southern, located in Berks County, about 20 miles east of Allentown.
The Short Line Railroad in Kempton is the WK&S, the Wanamaker, Kempton, and Southern, also known as the Hawk Mountain Line, so named because of the nearness of the Hawk Mountain Bird Sanctuary. The ticket office for the railroad was the former Joanna Station, while the gift shop was a freight station in Catasauqua. Trainman Bill Potiker, a veteran railroader with the Reading Railroad, posts the day's schedule. Behind the Kempton station is an HO gauge layout set up in a railroad car. Tom Loper, the general manager of the WK&S, tells us about the ride.
The steam train takes a ride from Kempton north to Wanamaker and return, which is about a 6.5 mile round trip.
Tom is also the conductor for today's runs.
Aboard!
The locomotive being used today is number 65, a Porter-built 060 of 1930 vintage. It was used in the construction of the Safe Harbor Dam in Conestoga, Pennsylvania. As on every short line railroad, maintenance is a never-ending chore. The track work goes on constantly, and the volunteers that run the WK&S replace about 250 railroad ties every year to ensure a safe, smooth track. A picnic area called Furman's Grove is a flag stop along the WK&S right-of-way. Here you may enjoy the beauty of tall trees in the shade along the Ontolani Creek. Our engineer today is Don Young. Working the fire is Rob Poligin. Tom Loper tells us about the bridges along the line.
The bridge, there's actually 2 bridges up there. The one goes over the creek, the other goes over a farmer's lane. Both bridges are they're concrete and they're about 50 feet long.
Our next stop is Wanamaker.
The Wanamaker Depot is the original Wanamaker station. It houses an antique shop, which the people can browse around in the 10-minute layover that we have at the end of the line while we run the engine around the train.
One more quick inspection of the engine, then it's all aboard to Kempton Station. Heading back into the yard limit, the rolling stock and motive power of the WK&S is displayed. A Porter 040, the Berksey trolley, and a gas-electric locomotive. We have just joined some of the 15,000 people a year that ride the Hawk Mountain Line, a Wanamaker, Kempton, and Southern.
With the cab located in the center of the locomotive, this Reading Camelback is one of two known to be in existence. It was recently acquired by the Railroad Museum and is presently being restored by volunteers. The Railroad Museum estimates that volunteers donate approximately $100,000 worth of labor each year, proving how many rail fans there are eager to put their hobby to work. We now leave the Hawk Mountain Line and travel to Pennsylvania's newest short line, Steamtown, USA.
The excursion goes from Scranton, PA to Moscow, PA. It's a total of 26 miles round trip.
That was Judy Crummy, Marketing Director of Steamtown, USA, telling us about our next ride. Steamtown made its first run in the fall of 1984. It's located at the site of the Lackawanna Railroad Station in Scranton. The station has been completely renovated and now houses a quality 150-room hotel. Steamtown has a vast diversification of locomotives and rolling stock on display, including the Union Pacific Big Boy 4012. He weighs 1.2 million pounds. Note how Randy, our sound technician, is dwarfed by the size of the drivers. Just 2 blocks from the station, Steamtown has complete repair facilities for all of its rolling stock.
We maintain 3 full-time engineers, plus many of our shop personnel are qualified engineers. A big part of our working force are volunteers, although we do have 23 full-time paid employees and about 10 part-time employees. But the bulk of the people are volunteers.
Ex-Canadian number 2317 is about to pull out for Moscow. Fireman Bill Jenkins talks about the locomotive.
Built in 1922 in Winnipeg, Canada. It's a good steaming engine, and of course we get a good grade of coal, a lot of heat in it, a lot of BTUs. It don't clinker and to where you have a lot of trouble in your firebox with it. It's pretty easy to shake the grates out, clean the fire, and maintain your fire.
There's a great deal of railroading experience riding in this cab with Bill, our fireman, and Hugo Lockman, the engineer.
I was road foreman of engines the last 20 years for Missouri Pacific. I was in an official capacity at Palestine, Texas, and Hugo was one of the engineers on the seniority roster, working on the Palestine division. He retired last March with 43 years service.
Does Hugo like being a Steamtown engineer?
Had to retire to get the job I wanted. They're running steam passenger train.
Now the fireman, Bill Jenkins, reflects on coming out of retirement and firing a locomotive again.
I started out on coal-burning steam engines as a fireman in 1947 in Wichita, Kansas. And I had about 5 years of coal-burning experience before Missouri Pacific dieselized. But once you learn a little about firing one, why you don't forget all of it. You get a little rusty when you come back, but you pick it up pretty quick.
The ride today is a 2-hour round-trip excursion up a grinding 1.6% grade to Moscow. Well, Moscow Station is now in sight. The station in Moscow is due for total restoration. Here, there will be some switching activity.
Okay, at Moscow, what we have to do is we have to bring a diesel along with us in order to pull the passenger coaches ahead. The steam engine comes off, the diesel pulls the passenger coaches ahead, and then the steam engine turns around and goes onto the back of the train. We go tender back.
Judy Cremy tells us plans are afoot to extend the line to Pocono Summit.
And then with that, our speed will be brought up on the excursion run. So it'll take approximately an hour and a half to get from Scranton to Pocono Summit, or Pocono Summit to Scranton. So now we'll be doing just about, twice the distance.
"500 passengers enjoyed the first run of the day. Another 600 will do the same on the second run." In 1984, 40,000 riders made the Steamtown trip. In 1985, some 100,000 rail fans rode the rails of yesterday at Steamtown. Painted in the original Lackawanna colors, number 2317 turns in another fine performance at Steamtown, USA.
In the spring of 1987, Steamtown expanded its line to Mount Pocono, making it a total of 52 miles round trip. From one of Pennsylvania's longest lines, we now come to possibly its shortest line, the Pioneer Tunnel coal mine and steam locomotive in northern Schuylkill County. I'm standing by a coal hopper which hauled the fuel that kept steam engines running and kept Pennsylvania industry running into the middle of this century. Let's go now to the heart of Pennsylvania's anthracite coal region in Ashland.
The Pioneer Tunnel coal mine and steam locomotive takes us to Ashland. They feature an underground mining train and a 42-inch mining gauge locomotive, or Loki, called the Henry Clay. And it has a little brother, the Henry Clay Jr. The 040 Loki has no onboard coal supply, but it doesn't matter because daily coal consumption is measured at the rate of a few wheelbarrows of coal per day. The 3/4-mile trip is getting underway, so let's get on board as engineer Mark Montz tells us about the Henry Clay.
The engine weighs 30 tons. It was made in 1927 up in Wilkes-Barre by the Vulcan Iron Works, and it was owned and operated by the Lehigh Valley Coal Company at a colliery up near Freeland, PA. Now, this engine was overhauled in the late 50s before they retired it, so there wasn't much work to putting her back into running order.
You get a great view of Ashland and the mountainous Pennsylvania countryside, both on the train and at the end of the line, when the engineer doubles as an informative tour guide. The Pioneer Tunnel is a community-owned, non-profit venture of the Reading Anthracite Company and the borough of Ashland. After an enjoyable view from the top of the Mahanoy Mountain, number 2 heads back through the country that was once the backbone of the anthracite coal mining industry. The Pioneer Tunnel coal mine narrow gauge just might be the shortest of our Pennsylvania's short line railroads.
We now leave the heart of the anthracite coal region and go now to the heart of Pennsylvania's fruit region in Adams County and the historic Gettysburg Railroad. This is the Cumberland Valley Combination Car, so named because it carried baggage and passengers. Built in Chambersburg in 1855, it's one of the oldest pieces of railroad equipment in existence today.
Gettysburg is a historically important area of Pennsylvania. The train that carried President Lincoln to give his famous Gettysburg address stopped at this very station. Railroads played a very important part in the Civil War. The Confederate forces had planned to go to Harrisburg to destroy the Pennsylvania Railroad, a major transporter of troops and supplies for the war effort on the Union side. Just 2 blocks down the street is the site of the Gettysburg Railroad that travels through the fields of first-day battle on its journey from Gettysburg to Biglerville in the heart of Adams County. We spoke with Jim Cornell, the general manager of the Gettysburg Railroad. He tells us how the railroad got organized.
October of '76, we started our freight operation. Really, since arriving at Conrail, this line was abandoned and taken over by the state and needed an operator. So the Gettysburg formed and come in and operated it on our own.
Is the station here original?
No, it wasn't. We moved in from our former railroad in western part of Pennsylvania. We trucked it in pieces and sewed it back together. It was on 2 truckloads.
The Getty is a working railroad.
It's all paid employees. We have usually help comes in the summer helping with track work. We're a common carrier between Conrail and Chessie system. We're handling about 30 cars a week right now, loads-wise.
There are 2 diesels and 2 steamers in the Gettysburg Railroad lineup. Today, pulling 2 steel coaches is number 76, a Baldwin 280. The locomotive has seen plenty of action.
Frisco used it for freight, and Mississippi used it for freight up to on 66, December 66 when on freight service.
Number 76 is now headed for Biglerville as we travel by Gettysburg College and this historic battlefield. There is only one bridge on the line, and this is it, all 50 feet of it. Number 76 storms through the Adams County countryside. Our 8-mile trip is now complete with our arrival in Biglerville. Thanks to number 76 and the Gettysburg Railroad, a working Pennsylvania short line.
Our short line tour of Pennsylvania now takes us to Reading, where this locomotive was built. This Reading B4A is a tank locomotive that carried its water in a tank over the boiler rather than in the tender. We'll be traveling on the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad, and with number 425 pulling our train at 50 miles an hour, this will be our fastest train ride today.
The Blue Mountain and Reading is a growing short line located north of Reading. Thurman Madeira, secretary of the line.
The station that we have at Temple was relocated from Frackville, Pennsylvania. It is an ex-Reading station on the Reading line up there. It was a freight station. It was torn down and moved to Temple piece by piece and re-erected down there by the Blue Mountain Reading. We run straight through to Hamburg and then stop there for about 15 minutes while the people can detrain, look at our railroad yard, see a water tower, the engine taking on water from a water tower, and if there's any minor maintenance, I'll do that, and then we'll head right back down to Temple Station. Use a backhoe right now to put the coal in the tenders. We're refurbishing a coal trestle down at Temple Station at the present time.
The Blue Mountain in Reading has a full complement of diesel power at its disposal, but it also features number 2839, a very special steamer. BM&R narrator Tom Hughes.
It's also a movie star. It was in the movie Coal Miner's Daughter. It was the train that came into town. It was the locomotive that pulled that train.
On the ride to Temple Station today, our locomotive is the Baldwin 425. The 4 1/4 big 69-inch drive wheels provide a top speed of 75 miles per hour. We'll be doing somewhere between 40 and 50 on the way to Temple Station. The original cost of the locomotive was $44,000. She weighs 222,000 pounds. She joined the Blue Mountain in Reading in August of 1984. And on July 13th, 1985, the BM&R had its first passenger-carrying train. Imagine the sight of the first steam passenger train to cross the rails into Hamburg in 44 years. Thurman Madeira says it takes a lot of work to run the line.
I would say we have about 20 volunteers. These are all ex-railroaders or rail fans that really put the time in. They do it on a volunteer basis, and they just like railroading.
The highlight of today's trip is the ride over the beautiful Stone Arch Bridge, which spans the Maiden Creek. Operations dictate that we go past the station at Temple and into a yard to have the locomotive go around, then pull into the station. This is to keep traffic moving on Tuckerton Road. Tom Hughes, narrator of the BM&R, tells an interesting story about the road.
Tuckerton Road, many years ago, was a railroad bed, and they constructed a road over top of the old railroad. They built the railroad line in order to divert coal traffic from the anthracite carrier of the Reading Company. When they completed the line, were ready to tap into the Reading Company. Reading said, no way, we don't want the competition. Well, the East Penn Railroad was forced to abandon the line without ever having run a train over it. Later on, Reading Company bought the East Penn Railroad and could have used that as a nice shortcut. That's what you call planning in advance.
Now a final salute to the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad. Past, present, and future rail service for Berks County.
In June of 1987, over 10,000 rail fans turned out at the Blue Mountain in Reading for 3 days of rail fan excursions and entertainment. Let's take a look at some of the events from that weekend.
Tugging on down from the Hamburg station to the edge of old Reading town. Going southbound next to the Schuylkill River, make a terminal turn around. Will not soon be forgetting my ride on the Blue Mountain Reading. Everything is feeling so fine on the Blue Mountain Reading line.
Thurman Madeira, passenger agent for the BM&R.
Okay, would you tell us a little bit of what's happening this weekend? What is it?
Well, we're having our second annual Rail Fan Weekend here in the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad. We run trains every hour on the hour from Temple Station and South Hamburg. And we're going to be finishing off with a grand finale tomorrow afternoon with a double-headed steam engine excursion from Temple to Hamburg and return. Steam engines will be engine number 2102, a 484 Northern, built in the Reading Locomotive Shops in 1945, and a Baldwin-built 462 Light Pacific, engine number 425. That was built in 1928 in Philadelphia. And we're also running a pair of Pennsylvania E8s that we have with a matching red cars. We expect about 10,000 people here in 2 days' time. Friday night, we started off with a night photo session, which you had to take the train to get to the photo session. We took you to our South Hamburg yard, inside the yard, and then we had Jim Boyd of, I think it's Railroad and Rail Fan. He was there, and he ran our night photo session for us. We had about 400 photographers set up in 2 photography lines, and they photographed until close to midnight last night, and then we brought everybody back on the 2102, the steam train. So they photographed the E8s, the 425, the 2102, and a couple of different moves and things like that in our yard in South Hamburg.
Chugging on down from the Hamburg station to the edge of old Reading town. Rolling southbound next to the Schuylkill River, make the terminal turn around. No, we'll not soon be forgetting a ride on the Blue Mountain Reading. Everything's feeling so fine on the Blue Mountain Reading line. Welcome to MTV.
Okay, well, maybe you won't see those guys on MTV, but you can see the success of that weekend, and from the looks of it, there will be more weekends for more rail fans to enjoy in the future. This is a standard section of railroad track at 4 feet 8.5 inches wide. Our next stop is at a line that would fit inside these rails. It's a narrow gauge line at 3 feet. The East Broadtop is one of the oldest narrow gauge lines in America and a big favorite among rail fans, both old and new. It takes us through Huntington County's beautiful Ogwick Valley, the East Broadtop.
Welcome to the East Broadtop Narrow Gauge Railroad. Engineer Bob Gillum tells us about the 8-stall roundhouse area and the people-powered turntable.
We have to use that every time we go into the roundhouse. You have to switch to what track you want. We have 6 engines in there. We use 3 of them. They're all Baldwins, all built in Philadelphia. So we have a small one about, I think it's 45 ton, and these run around 65, and the biggest ones are 90 ton.
Fireman Roy Miller tops off a tender, and number 15 will be ready for another day of rail fanning fun. In 1964, the East Broadtop was designated a registered National Historic Landmark by the U.S. Department of the Interior. It is the last 3-foot gauge line in the East still operating in its original location. EBT's operating vice president, C.R. Wilburn.
Our charter dates back to 1856. But due to the hard times in there and the Civil War, they weren't able to have help or money until after the war was over, and after that they got enough money to go ahead and open the railroad and start to operate from Mount Union out to Orbizonia first, and then they went on the mountain.
What?
Our destination on today's run is Colgate Grove. Our vantage point is the fireman's seat in the cab.
The ride today is 5 miles one way and 5 miles back. 10 miles. We call it a 10-mile round trip. Takes about 55 minutes.
Once at the Grove, the train will be turned around for its return trip. Richard Morgan, conductor of the EBT, explains how.
We turn the entire train on a Y system, where the train goes in one direction, then we back up onto a separate track, and then go forward again on another track, turning the train completely around. We're always going forward.
Here we are at the Colgate Grove picnic area. You might care to bring a picnic lunch and enjoy the quiet country setting. But don't miss the last train back to the station because it's a long walk. Next stop, Orbizonia Station. The East Broadtop was designed for the movement of coal from the Broadtop mines of central Pennsylvania to Mount Union. The semi-bituminous coal was transferred from narrow-gauge hopper cars to standard-gauge cars on the Great Pennsylvania Railroad. Are the engines kept fired up all the time?
Yeah, we keep them hot all night, and, except when we're running weekends. Then we fire them up early Saturday morning. It takes about 6 hours to get them hot. Well, we started from cold up to where we got to have running steam, right around 150.
We'll do a pass-by of the Orbistonia station so that the train can enter the Y turnaround. The Shade Gap Electric Railway is located near the Y. Its trolleys are operated by members of Railways of Yesterday. Now an encore on the East Broadtop Railroad, a historical treasure and one of the great Pennsylvania short lines.
China, real silver, mahogany paneling. Imagine dining in these kind of surroundings on your next flight to LA. This is the Western Maryland business car, number 203, and it was equipped to let railroad executives travel in the comfort and style they were accustomed to. This car represents the best of railroad's bygone era. As the fall colors reach their peak, we find ourselves at one of Pennsylvania's more colorful railroads located in New Hope, a trip that includes a view into the movie-making history that took place in Pennsylvania.
The New Hope Steam Railway is located in the center of New Hope next to the historic Delaware Canal. You'll feel the pages of time turn back as you view the New Hope station with its famed Witch's Peak roof. This is the original building constructed in 1891 and has been restored to the time of your great-great-grandfather. You may tour this building and take a look at its classic interior. The main steam locomotive number 40 would not be running today. Art Adams, board member and qualified engineer of the New Hope Steam Railway, tells why.
Today what happened is we had problems with number 40, and for that reason we're using the diesel. We're substituting the steam engine. We had problems with one of the tubes in there and it's a leak and we have to get that welded.
Luckily, the NHSR can rely on its stable of locomotives, including 3 steamers and 1 diesel. The freight station was built in 1892. Tickets for today's trains are sold in this 1906 wood-sided baggage car. This short line has a most colorful past.
Well, the original railroad was owned by the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, which started in 1890. And then once the Reading discontinued passenger service here, why then it was used mostly for freight service. Then they became the New Hope and Ivyland, and then that in turn we started running passenger service here with old Reading coaches that we purchased from the Reading Company.
As we leave New Hope and pass the second crossing, we find more railroading excitement. It's the famous curved trestle used in the Perils of Pauline movie serials of long ago. Our train slows down for an excellent view. Our engineer today is Dane Martin. The brakeman is Bill Coffey, who is also a board member of the railroad. Art Adams fills us in on some of the sights along the line and some of the forthcoming events planned at the NHSR.
The track is 15 miles long from New Hope to Warminster. It ties in with SEPTA at Warminster. The ride's roughly around an hour and a half. We go as far as Buckingham, which is 7 miles. Right now you're going up through the mountains through Bucks County, and you know, right at this time is a good season because of the leaves are turning, and occasionally there's deer to cross over the track, and that's basically it.
Guess who's becoming a crew member this December?
And in December, now, we have the Santa Claus special, which is a big thing with us for 2 weekends, 1 weekend or 2 weekends. It all depends how many reservations we get. Why, then we'll be running Santa Claus with the steam engine. And then Santa Claus will walk through the coaches and sit down with every one of the children. He does not miss anybody. And then there's also a banjo player that will sing Christmas songs all the way through to keep the people happy. And We really enjoy that. That's our biggest, I think, our biggest thing. Plus, it's a tourist attraction here. New Hope is a big tourist attraction, and we try to make it as part of it, of the old times.
We are making our way up the 2% grade of the Soulbury Mountain, with the colors of autumn providing an eye-catching display. In about 40 minutes, we arrive at the Buckingham Valley Station. The Buckingham Valley Station is painted in the original Reading colors. Here you may detrain as the SW1 goes around the train to recouple and take us back to New Hope. While Bill Coffey engineers the return trip, we'll move from the cab to the caboose and the specialty car called the Closet Squirrel. You might ask, what is a closet squirrel? The hostess of the car, Edna Zamba, explains.
Well, it's an old Conrail caboose that we purchased and remodeled. We put in heating and we put in air conditioning and a refrigeration. We are going to put in a stove, and the rest of it is original Conrail caboose.
This couple is celebrating their anniversary right here on the Closet Squirrel. The Closet Squirrel is also available for birthday parties, weddings, anniversaries, and any special occasion. Now sit back in your seats and enjoy the trip back to the famous New Hope Station. Of the New Hope Steam Railway and Museum is threefold: the restoration, preservation, and the operation of antique railway equipment. The NHSR, an all-American Pennsylvania short line.
Muncie, Hughesville, Williamsport. Among its many stops, the Pennsylvania short lines would collect the mail from the post offices. This baggage mail car was built in Altoona in 1893. And along the way, the postal clerk would sort the letters for delivery. Well, our final journey is aboard the Strasburg Railroad, located right across from the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. Founded in 1832, the Strasburg Railroad is the oldest of our Pennsylvania short lines and perhaps its best known.
The Strasburg Railroad is located in the Amish country of Lancaster County. Ellis Bachman, Vice President Administration, tells us more.
The railroad as it is now got started in 1959. None of this was here 25 years ago. All that existed at the railroad was two rusted rails running through a patch of weeds from Strasburg to the Lemon Place Junction. Number 31 is the engine we went into business here with back in the early 60s. Number 90 we bought in the late 60s. The 1223 and 7002 are both museum locomotives. We also have a 44-ton diesel locomotive that we bought from the Pennsylvania Railroad some years ago. Well, the present water tower is standing on stilts made from some former utility poles That served us well for a number of years, but the bottom is falling out of it now, so we're building a new steel tank that's more prototypical to railroad. We coal the engines from a dump truck. Stand back, it's dusty. Switch Tower was formerly located at Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. It was known as Lemo Tower, and in years before that it was known as J Tower. That tower is actually owned by the Lancaster Chapter National Railway Historical Society. The station that we use was built a little over a century ago along the Reading system. It was formerly located at East Petersburg, Pennsylvania, and we bought it in the early 60s and moved it here. So it is a real, honest-to-goodness, small-town station. It's factual.
The Strasburg Railroad is called the Road to Paradise for a good reason.
Because it goes to Paradise. The railroad actually goes into Paradise Township and to the village of Paradise.
The Strasburg Railroad is a freight-carrying railroad, and each year interchanges over 50 carloads of freight from Lemon Place Junction to Strasburg, acting as a connecting point from Conrail.
Fairview, Espinche, Cherry Hill, Grouse Grove, all aboard!
The Bluebell, the 11 o'clock train, is now headed for Lemon Place Junction. The locomotive that pulls the 11:30 train, the Strasburger, is undergoing final preparations in the yard. Number 1223 is painted in its original Pennsylvania Railroad scheme. This engine, several cars, and specially designed Hello Dolly car, which was built in the Strasburg shop, starred with Barbara Streisand and Walter Matthau in the movie version of Hello Dolly. The 11:30 train is now pulling in, and we'll hop on board and see just some of the sights on the Road to Paradise. Our conductor is Ned Sheffer.
The route over which we are traveling today is one of the oldest railroad rights-of-way in the entire world. It was given to the Strasburg Railroad by an act of the Pennsylvania State Legislature on June 9, 1832. And on June 9, 1982, we celebrated 150 years of continuous services to the communities of Strasburg and Paradise. Fairview Crossing is next. The Red Caboose Lodge and Motel will be located to the running left of our train.
The Cherry Hill Station may be the world's smallest.
Now watch for that Cherry Hill Station and don't you blink or you're going to miss it. And as we go by, you'll notice a sign reads population 17 more or less. Well, that means more when we arrive and a whole lot less when we leave. Now, if you continue to look out to the running left of our train, we'll be passing the 11 o'clock train returning to Strasburg. This is one of the few places on the continent of North America that I know of that one steam train passes another steam train on a regularly scheduled basis. Lemon Place Junction next, where the main line of the Strasburg Railroad meets the main line of Amtrak and Conrail. Now, back in the early 1900s, it was as high as 32 passenger trains a day would stop here at Lemon Place Junction. Today, there are 22 passenger trains go past here, but they don't even slow down. This is Lemon Place Junction. And our next stop will be Paradise, where you can change for Coatesville, Downingtown, Paoli, North Philadelphia, Trenton, Newark, and New York, Lancaster, Harrisburg, Altoona, Johnstown, Pittsburgh, and points west. That is, if you can run fast enough to catch the Amtrak train.
At Lemon Place Junction, the 1223 is turned around and we head back to Strasburg.
If you're interested as to how we establish our speed, it's a simple matter. The oldest timetable we ever found for our line was in the Lancaster Inland Daily for December 2nd, 1851. And we still follow that same basic schedule today, nearly 135 years later. So if you'd like to see how fast great-great-grandpa traveled, this is it. Somewhere under 60 miles an hour. And please, don't anybody get off our train and run ahead of our locomotive. That infuriates our engineer. By the time we reach our station, you will have traveled some 9 miles over the rails of history. We thank you for coming because it is you who makes all of this possible. We hope you will come back again, bring your friends and neighbors, and don't forget your picnic lunch. You'll find there's always something different. The Strasburg has gone further backward in the last 28 years than most railroads have gone forward. Next time you travel, take the train. It's 10 times safer and a lot more fun.
A lot more fun is right. And as rail fans will tell you, a ride on any of these short lines gives you a special feeling for travel that no other form of transportation can offer. A chance to travel into the past and see distance as a measurement of miles and not hours. And as long as we keep riding them, they'll keep running them. I'm Chris Doran, and thanks for joining me on Pennsylvania Shortlines.
30 covered bridges remain in Lancaster County. Now see them all in a new video, Lancaster County on a Bridge. See the bridges, mills, and streams that make this area one of the most beautiful in the country. Enjoy tranquil moments by flowing streams as you view this video over and over. The professional narration and special musical score make Lancaster County on a Bridge a relaxing treat anytime. Use it as an educational video for your children. It's an excellent way to show them covered bridges of a bygone era. And Lancaster County on a Bridge makes a thoughtful gift anytime, especially for friends across the country. Plus, as an added bonus, Strasburg Railroad, a round trip on the oldest short line in the country. To order Lancaster County on a Bridge, dial 1-800-348-6610 or send $19.95 check or money order to KCS Video, Post Office Box 4, Campbelltown, Pennsylvania 17010. $19.95 includes sales tax and handling. Money refunded if not delighted. Call now, 1-800-348-6610. That's 1-800-348-6610.
Perry County on a Bridge is here. If you enjoy the country look, you'll love this video. See 14 covered bridges in your home in breathtaking color with professional narration and music score. Perry County on a Bridge makes a great gift, too, and it's only $12.95 postpaid. To order Perry County on a Bridge, dial 1-800-348-6610 or send $12.95 to KCS Video, P.O. Box 4, Campbelltown, PA 17010. Pennsylvania residents had 6% sales tax. Money back if not delighted. Call now 1-800-348-6610. 1-800-348-6610.